crazy. Even now, 9 years after the tsunami, they're still working hard to terraform the entire region. This is Minami Sanriku, one of the worst affected places along the coastline. They're raising the entire town 10 metres above sea level. And the building we're standing on now, which is completely destroyed, has been left here as a monument to the disaster, to remind people of the sheer destructive force that this region witnessed.
400 kilometres of coastline were wiped off the map in a single day, taking the lives of over 15,000 people. And with an estimated $235 billion of destruction, the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami remains the costliest natural disaster the world has ever seen. I've come to take a look at the past, present and future of the region, to hear the incredible stories of the people whose destinies were forever shaped by the tsunami, from a destroyed farm that went on to cultivate Japan's most expensive and luxurious strawberries, to an inventor who redesigned one of the world's most wasteful products. We'll meet the fishermen who lost everything but went on to redefine their industry, and hear the inspiring story of Ichio Kano, the owner of an inn who lost her home and her family but refused to close her business. These are the extraordinary stories of what happened after the tsunami. The Japanese coastline has always been prone to tsunamis, but nothing could have prepared Tohoku region for what it was going to face on March 11, 2011. The highest wave to hit Minami Sanriku registered at 67 feet high, with over 800 people losing their lives, almost 10% of the town's population. To help future generations appreciate the sheer destructive power a tsunami can bring, this time the town is leaving behind a brutal reminder. The lone 5-storey building standing in the wasteland was once a popular wedding venue. Today, as the diggers work around it on all sides, it remains completely untouched, both as a time capsule and as a horror story. I'm meeting with Fumio Ito, who was in Minami Sanriku on the day of the disaster, and who dedicates his time as a kataribe, literally a storyteller. As we make our way through the skeletal remains of the building, he paints a bleak picture of how events unfolded for the 327 people who took refuge within its walls.
40 This is the elevator shaft on the 5th floor of the building. There was over 40 people in here on the day of the tsunami because it was freezing cold. Don't forget, it was March, it was winter, it was freezing. This is where they came, this is where they stayed. Just before the tsunami struck at 2:46 PM and 2/3 of the structure disappeared beneath the waves, panic and confusion quickly took hold as many considered fleeing the building. Fortunately, a tsunami expert present on the day was able to warn most of the people to stay inside on the upper levels. Tragically, not everyone heeded the warning.
言うことを聞かない人も中にいたみたいですね。はっきりした人数は分かりませんが、その前にここを出られた方何人いてるか分かんないです。手を広げてから逃げ帰った方8人いたそうですがね、そのうち4名は私の近所の方でした。残念ながらうちに帰った後全員が流されてしまったんですよね。
Whilst the water from the tsunami didn't reach this level, the waves that hit the building came over, they sort of spilled over the building and reached this level. So even though we're above the level of the tsunami, you can still see on this photo just how much water was on the roof of the building. This is unthinkable when you think how high up we are now.
ちなみにここで魚が泳いでいたそうです。
So we're on the 2nd level now, and this floor, the water level came higher than this floor. And the most remarkable thing is this shrine is completely intact. Not only was there a tsunami, there was the massive earthquake, the magnitude 9.1 earthquake, and that caused untold destruction before the tsunami even hit. And yet, look at the condition of this shrine. There's barely a scratch on it. I think it was a really great idea to keep this place here. I mean, looking at the photos of what it looked like before the tsunami and now, it's unrecognisable, it really is. This is one of the only buildings remaining, and it conveys that destruction in a way that just photos simply can't.
The The seawater didn't just wash away people and homes, it also stole the livelihoods of those that survived, particularly in the agricultural sector, where the salt water destroyed the fertile soil along the coastline. The town of Yamamoto, just 30 minutes south of Sendai City, lost its entire farming industry overnight. But instead of giving up, the strawberry farmers in the area teamed up to work together, and through the adversity their hard work paid off, as they ended up cultivating the most luxurious variety of strawberry in all of Japan.
So this is Ichigo World, literally strawberry world, and in this greenhouse alone there's over 12 tons of strawberries, and now I'm going to go and eat them all.
In recent years, GRA, the company that owns the farm, has received a great deal of international publicity for selling Japan's most expensive strawberries. But just how much can you expect to pay for a box of the biggest, juiciest, most decadent strawberries?
So these are the most premium strawberries that you can purchase here. They're literally called Migaki Ichigo, polished strawberries, and if you look at them, there we go, look at that. The absolute best strawberries money can buy. 5,000 yen for a box at $50, but each and every one of these strawberries has been cultivated to absolute perfection. Easily the most sophisticated premium strawberries that I've ever seen.
Takao Ono is the company's undeniably lucky manager, who's now going to show us the best way to unlock the flavour of each strawberry.
So how many strawberries do you eat in a week, Ono-san?
Too many.
Too many. 本当に毎日食べてるの？
毎日食べてる。
美味しい食べ方ありますか？
このヘタを取って。
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
で、上から、そうすると最後が甘くなるんです。
あ、なるほどね。じゃあこれから練習しましょう。全部。
もともとこの土地でイチゴの栽培っていうのはあったんですけども、やはりここで作った土地のイチゴっていうのはそこまで量が日本全国で多くはないんですよね。今中東とか、ドバイの向けの輸出が増えてはいるんですけども、向こうで、僕らのイチゴを、見本市とかで紹介するとですね、これはイチゴなのかって言われるんですよね。本当にイチゴなのか、こんな美味しいイチゴあるのかっていうのをよく皆さん口にしていただいています。そんな有名でもなかったイチゴの町がどんどん日本国内だけでなくて、グローバル、世界に向けてですね、一つの町が知っていただく機会が増えるというのは町にも少しは貢献できてるんじゃないかなと考えています。はい。
Hearing the story of how Yamamoto's strawberry farms not only recovered but went on to thrive reminded me of another industry that was decimated and forced to rethink how they did business. Over 25,000 fishing vessels were lost or damaged in the tsunami, and 319 fishing ports, worth $80 billion, completely wiped off the map. But if losing 90% of the region's boats wasn't enough, after the recovery, many fishermen were failing to attract young recruits to their fleets, due to the sector being perceived as uncool and old-fashioned. 2 years ago, I heard the story of a group of fishermen from the city of Ishinomaki, one of the worst affected cities, who'd risen to the challenge of trying to rebrand the sector. They'd started a company called Fishermen Japan, and united experienced fishermen to work together and support each other. One of their first moves was to launch a marketing campaign that quickly went viral called Fisherman Call, where instead of using your usual phone alarm to wake up, you could go to their website, choose the fisherman of your choice, and have them call you up in the morning instead. Almost overnight, the somewhat unique campaign was a success, and led to an influx of 10,000 members joining their fan club. Although brilliant marketing aside, I've always wondered if it was a gimmick or if they actually went through with it. And having been invited to join the very fishermen who launched the campaign on one of their morning journeys out into the Pacific to harvest seaweed, we're finally about to find out.
So it's just gone 5 AM, the sun's coming up, beautiful conditions. Seriously, on a day like this you can really see the appeal of being a fisherman. We haven't come that far out actually, we sailed out for 10 minutes and this whole area is marked out with buoys, and they literally just pulled one of them up and a staggering amount of seaweed appeared. And the 4 of them are now harvesting the seaweed, which is then going to be shipped off to restaurants such as the one in Tokyo that we're going to visit later on. You know what, I have a lot of respect for fishermen. While we're tucked up in bed in the morning, They're out here, often in brutal conditions, getting the food that we eat and take for granted. I mean, I get up at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. By that point, these guys have already been up like 5 or 6 hours. To be honest, I'm probably the ideal person for Fisherman Call.
ね、フィッシャーマンコール自体は大学生、高校生、特に男子をターゲットにやったんですけども、実は応募がですね、来すぎて途中で止めたんですけど、一気に6000人ぐらいの応募があったんです。枠が30しかないんですよ。しかもほとんど8割方女性っていう応募の僕らちょっとターゲットとは違う感じで応募が来てしまったのがあって、何か大事な日、それは何でもいいんですけどね、デートでもいいし、本当になんかね、いろんなとにかくこの日だけはちょっと寝坊ができないよっていう日にね、僕らが起こしてあげるというで、それのきっかけにちょっとなんかね、朝海からかけてるんで、なんかイメージですかねを彼らに持ってもらうことで、その中からの何人かでもいいから海に興味を持ってもらって。
The essence of Fisherman Japan isn't about ringing people up in the morning though. Key to their success is putting a face to the often anonymous fishermen who supply the freshly sourced seafood that diners enjoy hundreds of kilometres away. After building their team and successfully launching their campaign, the next step was to set up a restaurant in the middle of Tokyo, 400 kilometres south, where they can regularly visit, meet the customers and connect the dining experience with the hard work and craftsmanship that goes into sourcing the ingredients.
やはり現地で、触れ合いながら食べる取れたてのものっていうのを、こんな美味しいものがあったんだねっていう感想がやっぱりどこでも飛び交うっていうのは、それは特別美味しいっていうのがね、大きな理由じゃなくて、美味しいのは美味しいんですけど、もちろんやはりその感覚、そこにいる人だったり、そこで食べるね場所だったり、やはりそういったものがさらに食べ物の美味しさを引き出してくれてるんじゃないかなと僕はすごく思っていて、でもなかなか現地に行くことっていうのはね、やはり限られてるので、東京というところ、日本の中心のど真ん中で、それをその感覚を味わえるような飲食店がやはり作れたらいいよねと。
So we've harvested the seaweed. Well, I didn't, they did. They did a very good job. And here it is, fresh out of the ocean. Even though we are in the middle of nowhere right now, this is going to be loaded onto a truck and sent down to Tokyo to arrive on my plate. But before then, first things first, we're going to go and take a look at the future of chopsticks.
In the days following the disaster, with 121,000 buildings completely demolished and almost 700,000 damaged, people fled to evacuation centres to seek shelter. Unsurprisingly, supplies quickly began to run out, including eating utensils such as chopsticks. One problem is that the most popular variety of chopsticks in Japan are single-use chopsticks. In fact, every single year a staggering 24 billion pairs are disposed of, equivalent to 200 pairs per person. As supplies began to run out, one man took note and wondered if he could come up with reusable chopsticks that weren't just more environmentally friendly, but were also inspired by the town's local delicacy.
Japan goes through 250,000 tonnes of scallop shells every single year, and they are just thrown away, they're just tossed away. But perhaps there is a future for them after all, because these chopsticks are 51% made of scallop shells. And it makes it not only durable and last longer than plastic, but also heat resistant, and when they are eventually disposed of and incinerated, they let off far less smoke than plastic. It's an amazing idea, an amazing example of recycling something that's normally just tossed away.
これをなんとか直角に折れるような割り箸を作ってくださいという弁当屋さんの頼みがありました。それでこれはまた材料の配列を直しまして、このように直角に折れるように作りました。だから怪我をしないように安全を優先して作りました。
この箸はどのぐらい使いますか？
約5年間ぐらい使います。
5年間ぐらい。
普通の割り箸は1回使ったら捨てるけど、これはもったいないよね。洗って使って、フォークもスプーンもこういうものも作れます。もうすでに商品として出ています。これはスプーンです。
The Western option, fork and spoon.
As Akio's factory gears up for mass production, it won't be long before thousands of scallop shell chopsticks are in the hands of people across the country. And while we're on the subject of chopsticks, it's time for me to head to Tokyo to try the freshly caught seafood and to meet Yuki Suda, one of the team from Fisherman Japan, who helped open the restaurant in Nakano.
So this wakame seaweed is the seaweed we caught just this morning up in Miyagi. It feels like a world away now. 一番好きな魚はどっちですか？
これ。
なんで？
これはね、脂っこくて美味しい。油。
そうなの？
ジューシー。
Juicy, fatty.
いや。
No. Oh yeah. So good. This is real wasabi root. The chef just harvested the wasabi and literally grated it in front of us. It's not the fake horseradish you normally get at sushi
多
restaurants.
くない。
多くない？
多くない。わさび多くない。大丈夫。
Challenge.
チャレンジ。
Have a night.
Good?
Oh my god.
How was?
Very good. You're correct.
Little bit 辛い。
Oh. What have I done?
他の居酒屋と比べるとですね、まず鮮度が違いますね。あとは実際、作った人、取った人の顔が見えるというのがうちの一番の違いですね。漁師が実際にお店に立ってですね、お客さんと一緒に触れ合って、これは自分が作ったものなんだ、取ったものだっていうのを説明するような、特別なそういうイベントなんです。
Of all the people I've met and the stories I've heard travelling around the tsunami-affected coastline, none of them have been quite as moving or as inspirational as Ichiyo Canals. Ichiyo runs an inn in a peaceful fishing town on the outskirts of Kesunuma City, and despite suffering great personal loss, has a reputation for being the life and soul of the local community. For the last stop on our journey, I wanted to catch up with her and see how her life has changed in the years since we last met.
Here we are. It's been about 2 years since I last visited Tsunakan, so it's going to be quite strange seeing Ichiyo again for the first time. Here we go. Konnichiwa. Hello. Kano-san.
Ah, Chris.
久しぶり。
お久しぶり、クリス。元気？元気。わおわお。どうぞ。どうぞ。
Tsunakan のビジネスはどうですか？
あれね、クリスが来てくれてから、YouTube に上げてから、そう外国のお客さんがいっぱい来てくれるようになって。
Oh my god。どちらの国から来ましたか？
オーストラリアとか、カナダからも来てくれた。
どうやって
イギリスとかも。
どうやってコミュニケーションできますか
？You are welcome もうとにかくこうジェスチャー Thank you とかね、もうでお茶飲むとかね、もう私は英語ができないので、もう身振り手振り。
でも簡単な英語できるでしょ？
簡単な英語だからご飯ライス食べるとかバス入るとかね。
One of the most noticeable differences since my last visit is the gigantic concrete seawall, 8 metres thick and 2 years in the making, just a few yards in front of Ichiyo's home. It's been built to protect the community from the frequent tsunamis the coastline faces.
今防潮堤がだいぶ見ての通り、だいぶ進んでるので、壁が 8.1 メートルで、ね、だからここからは海が見えなくなる。
悲しい。
もうやっぱり今までずっと海が見えて暮らしてきたので、やっぱ悲しいよね。いつまた来るかわからない。30年に一度は必ず来るっていう津波なので、三陸津波って。
30年
？30年に一度は必ず来る。今回の津波は、1000年に一度っていうくらいの大きさだったけれど、30年に1回は必ず来てるの。やっぱり壁があることによって安心ではあるよね。
Ichiyo is well acquainted with the dangers that come from living on Japan's Pacific coast. In 2011, the tsunami destroyed her home and her entire village. As the area began to re-emerge from the rubble, Ichiyo and her husband were at the heart of reviving the community when they decided to set up an inn that quickly gained popularity with the locals. However, in 2017, just as her life was getting back on track, her husband, eldest daughter and son-in-law went out fishing and tragically lost their lives when their boat overturned. After several months of mourning, Ichio took the difficult decision to reopen her business so she could continue doing what she loved. I ask her how she feels about the ocean, given how much pain it's inflicted upon her life.
いただくものも海からいただくものも多いんだけれど、だけどいただいてばっかりじゃダメなんだよなって自分に言い聞かせていて、やっぱりお返しするっていう部分もお返しっていうのかな、ちょっと難しいけど、やっぱりプラスもあればマイナスもあるんだって、それがバランスよくこの世は成り立ってるんだっていうふうに思わないと、ちょっと本当に生きていくのが大変になるのでね。日本の言葉っていうか一期一会ってあるんですけど、私は皆さんとお会いして、でもしかしたらこの人ともう二度と会えないかもしれないっていう気持ちでいつも接しているんです。だから後悔しないように、もうこの人と最高の笑顔でとかね、気持ちでこうお会いしたいっていうか、まあ悲しい顔をするよりは嬉しい顔をしてこう楽しいなっていう気持ちになりたいし、だからもしかしたらそれがハッピーに見えてるのかもしれない。
As life begins to return to normal almost a decade after the disaster, and the $12 billion seawalls that stretch along Tohoku's coastline reach completion, I leave feeling inspired by the resilient and optimistic spirit of each and every one of the people whose stories we've heard. And though none of the people in this documentary have ever met, all of them are connected. All of their paths in life have been shaped by the events of March 11th, 2011. They've shown that even when things seem to be at their very worst, it doesn't have to be the end. Hope lingers on.